Coming up on No Pulp, I'll tell you about the biggest name in college football making headlines, but not because of football.
And I'll tell you why Jim Harbaugh should be out as Michigan's head coach at the end of this season.
And we will tell you what to expect in the Pac-12 this year. This is No Pulp, and it starts right now.
What's up, party people?
He has finally silenced the doubters once and for all.
Small schools can jump up and beat these big teams.
That offense is going to be fantastic.
I am ready to go to battle.
Welcome one, welcome all into the CitrusTV studio for another edition of No Pulp with, let's be honest, your favorite host. I'm Jaron. He's Cameron Macaulay, and we're here for the next 30 minutes to provide you with all of our takes in the college football world. Cam, you got good or bad takes with you today?
The question isn't whether I have good or bad takes. The question is whether you are ready for them.
Well,
You know I deliver.
I'm not completely sure if I'm ready for his takes.
Deliver.
Okay, well, let's start off with the biggest name in college football, and that, of course, is Clemson's quarterback Trevor Lawrence, who has been making headlines the past couple days, not because of what he's been doing on the field, instead because of what he's not doing, because he's tested positive for COVID-19. Lawrence missed last weekend's game against Boston College and is ruled out for this Saturday's showdown with Notre Dame. So, Cam, how does Lawrence's absence impact this game against Notre Dame and the entire college football world?
Well, obviously it's a big deal for this game against Notre Dame. For the entirety of the college football world, I actually don't think this is as big a deal as it's being made out to be. Because here's the thing, when we started this season, we were having discussions about bringing back college football, just like the discussions about reopening this country as a whole. This was going to happen. Something like this was inevitable. A high-profile coach, a high-profile player catching COVID. I hope that Trevor Lawrence doesn't suffer any long-term effects from this. I hope he's fine, but to be honest, Clemson's probably going to be fine if he misses 1 or 2 games. Even if they drop Notre Dame, I think they're going to be okay.
Yeah, the thing that I like to think of this, and you can always either take the dark side or the bright side. I want to look on the bright side of things. I see this as an opportunity for both Clemson and the entire college football world. College football has an opportunity to knock off the top-ranked Clemson Tigers. That's something you don't get every single week. And as for Clemson, they get to test out what they have in DJ Uiagalelei, the backup quarterback, because all they've known is Trevor Lawrence for the past 3 years. Now Lawrence is out. You get to see what your future is going to look like, and you gotta test those waters at some point. So I see it as an opportunity.
Exactly, planning for the New York Jet version of Trevor Lawrence. And for Clemson, outside of the playoff, this is the worst time for Lawrence to miss games, with the biggest game of the regular season Saturday in South Bend against undefeated Notre Dame. As you mentioned, Lawrence's backup DJ Uiagalelei tallied 342 yards and 3 total touchdowns in his first start. But should Clemson or Notre Dame be favored on Saturday?
I'm going to go with Clemson should be favored in this one, and let me give you a breakdown. So if Lawrence was there, I think Clemson would have been favored by 8.5 points. That's my line. That's a Jaron May line. That's not any actual statistical evidence to back that up. I think Trevor Lawrence is worth, on the road against the number 4 team in the country, I think he's worth about 6 points. So that brings the spread back down to Clemson favored by 2.5. So give me the Tigers as the favorites heading in to Notre Dame.
Well, ESPN has neither of them. They have Clemson as the 5.5-point favorites.
Okay.
And I like Notre Dame plus 5.5. The reason why, yeah, DJ Uiagalelei, he was great. He was fine in that Boston College game. But there is a difference between Boston College at home and going to South Bend to take on a top 10 defensive unit in Notre Dame. This is going to be low-scoring football. I think experience really matters here, almost more than talent. Having Trevor Lawrence, who has been in the biggest stages of college football, is huge because you just have that presence. And Clemson might struggle without him. It's going to be really interesting. If I were a betting man, I would look pretty heavily at Notre Dame plus 5.5.
DJ Uiagalelei is better than Ian Book.
No, he's not. He's
the starting quarterback for Notre Dame.
He
is. All right, sticking with COVID-19 impacting college football, Wisconsin thought last week it had a problem.
Following a sensational debut on Friday, freshman quarterback Graham Mertz tested positive for COVID-19. Now he's going to get another test to confirm the positive result, but if that comes back positive as well, per Big Ten rules, he'll have to be away from the team for 21 days and will miss 3 games.
The Badgers thought they were losing their star quarterback was a problem, but now that is the least of their issues. There are now 27 positive cases within the program, including their head coach. And because of that, Wisconsin decided today it will not play its game against Purdue this Saturday. Cam, how does missing this game affect their chances to make the college football playoff?
So there's two ways to look at this here. One, in terms of what is being asked of them if they want to make the playoff, and two, how they can actually accomplish that. In terms of what's asked, I don't think this changes much. Pretty much Wisconsin has to win the Big Ten, their division of the Big Ten. I don't know what it's named because it's not East or West and whatever.
They do have a
whatever Big Ten lingo
weird
it is.
separation.
They got to beat Ohio State in the Big Ten title game to make the playoff. That doesn't change. But their ability to be ready for this season, to have chemistry with one another, to start on the positive note, that is a much, much tougher situation now for them. And it's really unfortunate because I like this Wisconsin team, but I just don't think they get there.
To be able to make the college football playoff, you think Wisconsin would have to win their conference, and to be able to get into the conference, the championship game in the Big Ten, is you have to be able to have a certain amount of games played. They already missed last week against Nebraska. They're going to miss this upcoming week. If they miss one more week as this COVID cluster is continuing to expand, that pretty much just takes them out, and they're not even eligible for the Big Ten championship. That takes them out of the college football playoff. So ultimately, I think missing this week against Purdue is a huge loss for Wisconsin.
It's definitely tough on that. And as far as the football that was played on Saturday, headlines were made at the end of the first half of Missouri against Florida. Heisman contender Kyle Trask took a late hit, and head coach Dan Mullen rushed the field to berate the refs for not throwing a flag. From there, things only escalated, and multiple punches were thrown in a brawl that lasted the better part of a minute. Mullen was fined for his involvement, and a total of 6 players received suspensions. So, Jaron, what does this say about college football right now?
It says 2020 is impacting college football just like it has impacted our entire lives this year. 2020 has finally caught up with the college football world. Listen, Dan Mullen and the Florida Gators have just been not having their best year. Dan Mullen once called to pack the swamp, even though COVID is just running rampant in the state of Florida. Now his team is getting in fistfights and brawls at the end of the game. They need to pick it up, especially because they have a chance at the college football playoff this year. But if they keep acting up like this, it's going to impact their chances.
It's interesting because this is a really good Florida team. And no, like, here's the obligatory, we don't condone violence here at No Pulp. Fights are not good. They shouldn't happen. I'd like to focus on Dan Mullen for a second, because over the last 2 weeks, he has, as you said, called for fans to pack the swamp amidst a COVID crisis, gotten COVID himself, and then come back and instigated a brawl. I'd like to dub that the Florida man hat trick. And congratulations, Dan Mullen. You are the first successful completion of the Florida man hat trick.
Yeah, not a great couple weeks for Florida football. All right, coming up, a battle of the Cams will ensue. Cameron Ezair will be joining us to take on Cameron Macaulay in a showdown to see who is the true Cam. How do we find that out? Well, of course, by using the juicer. Don't go anywhere. No Pulp. We'll be right back. Welcome back into the CitrusTV studio. I'm Jaron May. Over at the wall is Cameron Macaulay, joined by Cameron Ezair. I know it's super confusing, but we'll figure it out. I hope you're thirsty because it's time for the juicer. If you're new to the program, this is a little game we like to play where I propose a topic and the two guys over there will have 30 seconds and only 30 seconds to debate their side. After I hear both arguments, I'll pick who had the better case and will award a point, except for the last one is worth 2 points. You guys ready to rock and roll?
Got my notes here. We're good.
Okay, let's put 30 seconds on the clock, and let's start with Jim Harbaugh. His 13th ranked Michigan Wolverines were upset by the Michigan State Spartans last weekend. So Camps, was this the last straw for Harbaugh in Ann Arbor? Mr. Macaulay, we'll start with you. 30 seconds on the clock. You may begin.
All right, let's talk about Jim Harbaugh. Absolutely, this is the final straw because he came here to do 3 things: beat Ohio State, beat Michigan State, and get to the college football playoff. Well, Jim Harbaugh is now 1-6 at home against Michigan and Ohio State. He's never beaten the Buckeyes, and both those other teams have made the playoff, while Michigan has not. Harbaugh has been here since 2015 and accomplished none of the things he was supposed to do, and for that reason, he should be fired at the end of the year.
Cameron, through 2007 and 2014, Michigan had one 10-win season. A lot of those seasons were actually losing seasons for the Wolverines. This is what Jim Harbaugh's been able to do. He's had 3 10-win seasons, the other 2 9 wins and 8 wins. I understand that what makes a good college coach if they win bowl games. Right now, he's 1-4. But you have to think about their losses. In the past 3 seasons, they've lost 3 separate games, all to top 10 ranked teams. Jim Harbaugh is good for this team. He recruits well. I think he might just have to instill a little more toughness in his guys. Realize the Big Ten, it's Ohio State, Penn State, and the field.
Okay. He's had enough time. I'm going with Cameron Macaulay in this one. 1-4. Cameron Azaire, you kind of just put yourself in the grave right there. All right, guys.
Not a great start.
Now, let's play a little game of Mad Libs with me, all right, here in the Juicer. Oklahoma State's loss to Texas helps blank the most. Cameron Azaire, you have 30 seconds, and you may begin.
As much as I wanted to say SEC teams in general, teams like Georgia, Texas A&M, and Florida, I went with Georgia. Now, no 2-loss team has ever made the college football playoff. It's going to change this year. I'm saying that Clemson beats Notre Dame. If Georgia beats Florida this weekend, I think Georgia has a real good chance, even going in as a 2-loss team, because I think that they lose to Alabama in the SEC championship game. But the strength of schedule for Cincinnati and BYU, even if they stay undefeated, will not impress the College Football Playoff Committee.
I have said this before on No Pulp. The biggest winner from the Big 12 imploding is the Pac-12, because one of those conferences almost always gets into the playoff. Pac-12 champ has missed the playoff each of the last 4 years, and both times the Pac-12 champ did make the playoff. The Big 12 champion was the one that was left at home instead. The Pac-12 has to struggle with being the 5th of Power 5 conferences. That means they need outside help just to get into the playoff, and that outside help has come because the Big 12 has vacated that spot. So Oregon and the rest of the conference are smiling right now.
I'm so sorry, Cameron Azaire. I'm going with Cameron Macaulay in this one as well. 2-0, Cameron Macaulay. The Pac-12 is going to make the college football playoff this year. It's not going to be a 2-loss Georgia team. All right, now let's move from the Big 12 to the SEC and talk about LSU. The Tigers are just 2-3 this season after putting together arguably the best college football team a year ago. So, Cams, my next question in the Juicer is, what is wrong with LSU? 30 seconds are on the clock. Cameron Macaulay, you can go.
I'll begin by saying you mentioned my exact point. They are coming from one of the greatest teams in the history of college football. Continuity is the struggle here. Not only did they lose 10 starters on that team, which had the most NFL draft picks of any team in college football history, they lost their quarterback, who just so happened to win the Heisman, and their star offensive coordinator, who went to the NFL, and their top wideout, who opted out of the season, and they didn't have spring football. Continuity is the issue here, just no time to integrate.
It's comeback season, not just because I'm down 2-0, but it's not for LSU either. The issue with LSU is inexperience. Miles Brennan is out with that injury. Finley and Johnson has that, you could say, pseudo quarterback duo for LSU has proven nothing. They stood tall against South Carolina, but did absolutely nothing against a ranked Auburn team. Last week against Auburn, their top rusher and receiver were both underclassmen. You have guys on the defensive side like Christian Fulton out, Grant Delpit, Clavon Chasen. They're all out to the NFL draft. 14 guys were picked, 5 in the first round. You don't have Edwards-Helaire, you don't have Burrow. It's inexperience.
Don't call it a comeback. I'm going Cameron Azaire this one. 2-1, still in favor of Cameron Macaulay. We are in our last topic, but this last topic is worth 2 points, so it's anyone's game. All right, the last topic here in the Juicer. I need you guys to pick a side. Clemson is currently ranked as the top team in the country, but Alabama is only 2 points below the Tigers in the AP poll at number 2 in the country. So which team deserves the top spot? 30 seconds on the clock. Cameron Azaire, you can start us off.
Cam, Clemson. It's number one Clemson. When Trevor Lawrence comes back, that's when Clemson's really going to prove it. The reason that guys like Harris and Mac Jones, their stats are skyrocketed for this Alabama team, better than Etienne and Lawrence, is because Travis Etienne and Trevor Lawrence don't really play in the fourth quarter. Travis Etienne, Trevor Lawrence, that entire team, you got Amari Rodgers. I think what keeps Clemson above Alabama is that defense. They give up over 100 yards on average less than Alabama does. I'm going with Clemson.
Clemson's done a very good job this season, I'll front you that, against their one-ranked opponent. Other opponents, the reason that those guys don't play in the fourth quarter, I don't know, Georgia Tech, Virginia, Syracuse, they don't inspire fear in the heart of college football. Meanwhile, Alabama has played two teams in the top 10 and beaten them both by a combined 45 points. They are the better team at the moment because they have played better teams, beaten better teams, looked convincing in the fact. And yeah, Clemson's starting quarterback is out right now. So right now, who would I take? I'd take Alabama. They should be number one.
Okay, so yes, Clemson doesn't play the top teams, but that's because they're in the ACC. You know exactly what I'm about to say. I'm going Cameron Azaire with this one. That is 2 points for him. That makes the score 3-2. Cameron Azaire comes in and wins this juicer competition between the camps. All right, coming up on No Pulp, the Pac is back, baby. The Pac-12 is starting up and coming up this weekend. So we'll give you our season predictions right after the break. Don't go anywhere. No Pulp. We'll be back in a couple seconds.
Back in the CitrusTV studio for this post-election edition of No Pulp, Cameron Macaulay alongside running mate Jaron May. I will say running mate, but I'm not going to lie. That juicer, tough scene.
I mean, I'm sorry. Clemson's better than Alabama.
Tape doesn't lie. I beat Cam in that argument. Regardless, this weekend will serve as an important landmark in the 2020 college football season as the last dormant Power 5 conference will finally awaken at 9 a.m. Pacific for some reason. The Pac-12 is officially going to get underway this weekend. If you're a fan of the show, you will remember that Owen Valentine and Max Chadwick made completely accurate Big Ten predictions. So now it's our turn, and we will start with the Coach of the Year.
Okay, my Pac-12 Coach of the Year is Justin Wilcox from Cal because he's the winningest coach, or rather the winningest coach doesn't always win the award. So yes, I think Oregon is going to have the most wins in the conference, but Wilcox has brought Cal from 5 wins to 7 wins to 8 wins, and I think he has a very solid team this year with a great roster. He's made some changes in the coaching staff. I think he brings it home because Cal's going to be the number 2 in that Pac-12 North Division.
I'm looking at the South Division for my Coach of the Year. Another coach who similarly built up a program, Herm Edwards at Arizona State. I really like this team. Defensively, they've got probably the best secondary in the Pac-12 by my money. They've also got a really good defensive line at stopping the run, and that is a powerful combo on the defensive side. And offensively, they did lose some talent, but they've got talented freshmen coming in and an electric quarterback in Jaden Daniels. I like this team to win the Pac-12 South, get to the championship game, and give Herm that Coach of the Year award.
Okay, now that we got the Coach of the Year, Cam, let's go to the Pac-12 Player of the Year. Who do you got?
I'm probably spoiling this already, but it is Jaden Daniels out of Arizona State.
Okay.
This guy is a true freshman. Are you ready for this? 3,000 yards, just about 17 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. He was tremendous last season as a true freshman. And yeah, he lost some weapons, Eno Benjamin and whatnot, but he still got Frank Darby, who is the guy that he is throwing to on a lot of these really deep balls, one of the best deep threats in the Pac-12. He's got a new offensive coordinator. I think he's due for a breakout year.
Okay, I'm going Kedon Slovis from USC. Listen, he was the Pac-12 Freshman of the Year last year, threw for over 3,500 passing yards, 30 touchdowns on a 71% completion clip. Absolutely fantastic. Plus, they have the air raid offense that really helps him. Let me go Kedon Slovis for USC.
Only thing we got left is who wins the Pac-12. Who you got?
I think this is an easy option right here, and it's Oregon. I mean, the Ducks are the best team in the conference. There's not much you can say. They're going to win the North. They'll eventually match up with USC, who will be the winners of the South, and they'll win the Pac-12 championship. championship game.
I've got Oregon too. Mario Cristobal's defense is electric, by far the best in the country. I think if there's any surefire bet in this conference, it's the Ducks.
Easy.
All right, coming out, we'll close out No Pulp by telling you who wins the big games of the week and give our final words on this week in college football. So don't change that channel.
Wrapping things up here in the Citrus TV studio, I'm Jaron May, he's Cameron Macaulay, and this is No Pulp. Cameron, before we get to our big games of the week, let's take a look at a very weird and updated AP poll. Clemson is still the top dog. BYU's in the top 10 for the first time this year. Liberty is now ranked.
Liberty!
Cam, what's standing out to you?
I mean, Liberty for me is the obvious one at 25. Coastal Carolina as a top 15 team in the country is phenomenal to me. I look at all these teams from group of 5 conferences that are really showing out. Kind of been a down year for the Power 5. Again, I just love Liberty at 25.
Yeah, I think Liberty is very well deserving of this. I also was going to say the non-Power 5 teams have been fantastic. That is because the Pac-12 haven't.
Yeah, that's fair.
They haven't been playing, right?
Granted, how many
Now,
ranked teams are there in the Pac-12?
There'll be, I don't know, 3 or 4.
I guess.
We'll see. The one team that I want to talk about is just North Carolina, a fall from grace. 3 weeks ago, they were number 5 in the entire country. Now they're unranked. That's not that good.
That is not great from Mac Brown. Very high expectations.
Yeah.
That loss
I
to
had him
Florida
as my
State.
ACC Coach of the Year.
2020, Florida State just being an awful loss. Continuing.
I know.
What a
Horrible.
fall from grace, speaking of that. Anyway, it's time to close this thing out on No Pulp by picking the big games of the week. And let's begin with the aforementioned Jim Harbaugh trying to get Michigan on the right track against Big Ten power Indiana?
Yeah, give me Indiana on this one. Michigan has fallen apart. I don't have any faith in Jim Harbaugh. And it's not because Indiana's a great team. It's more just because Michigan is just not that good right now. They don't seem like they have the pieces to put it all together. They lost to Michigan State, and now you're going to go up against the top 15 in the team in the country away. Give me Indiana in this one.
See, I know I just ranted about Jim Harbaugh. I feel like this is the perfect Jim Harbaugh win game because it doesn't matter anymore. Now that they have 2 losses, the playoff is gone. So they're just going to win some games like this, lose to Ohio State, and finish with a meddling record. Exactly.
Right. Okay. Our second big game of the week is a major SEC East implications. It's number 8 Florida taking on number 5 Georgia. Cam, who do you got?
So our first show this season of No Pulp, I said Florida was going to lose to somebody they shouldn't have. They did that against Texas A&M.
Okay.
They were going to beat Georgia and then get to the SEC championship. I still stand on that. I think Florida wins this game.
Okay, I got Georgia in this one. I'm really sold on the Dogs. I think that they end up with only 2 losses on the year, and that's, again, another loss to Alabama in the SEC championship game, not against Florida. Florida had that big brawl that we already talked about. They're a little all over the place right now. Give me the Dogs.
They're also really talented, though, with Kyle Trask, Kyle Pitts, and company. We close big games with the biggest of them all. We've already talked plenty about Clemson and Notre Dame, so all that's left is to pick the winner.
Clemson. Pretty simple. I mean,
coming from you, that's probably expected.
DJ Uiagalelei, I think, is as good as Ian Book. I think Clemson still has the best running back in the country, and they still have a dominant defense.
My head tells me Notre Dame. The numbers, the stats tell me Notre Dame, but my heart tells me don't pick against Clemson, don't pick against Dabo Swinney, so I'm not going to do that.
Okay. All right, so you got Clemson, I got Clemson. Before we go, it's time to get to our final words. My final words have to do with the NCAA implementing a policy that does not allow any practice or competitions to happen on Election Day for Division I programs. I think this is an absolutely fantastic idea and one that should be implemented during every election day moving forward. It all started with Eric Reveneau, Georgia Tech's men's basketball's associate head coach, who is the major advocate for the policy. These collegiate players and coaches are American citizens before they are athletes and should focus on their civic duties. Numerous college coaches don't agree with me, however. They're calling it a PR stint. But if it's a PR stint, who cares? At least some awareness is being brought to this day. Sports can take a day off.
Sports can absolutely take a day off for an election, especially an election as important as this one. For my final word, we're going to Rutgers for what is absolutely the play of the year, and for my money, one of the greatest plays in the history of football. Just watch this for yourselves. What you are seeing is not football. Football is a complex set of lots of little machines that work together to create something big. And in that sense, this couldn't be any further from football. I know it didn't count, and I don't care. This goes against 99.9% of the football that has ever been played. A team quite literally threw the ball to the winds of fate, and somehow, some way, it worked. Rutgers, the inventors of college football, played rugby in a 2020 football game, and it worked. This isn't football, it's art, and it doesn't belong in the scoreboard, it belongs framed in the Louvre.
In the Louvre. Wow, that is a big, big frame. All right.
And on that bombshell,
that's going to do it for us here on No Pulp. Make sure you go check out all of our content on social media by following @CitrusTV Sports. For Cameron Macaulay, I'm Jaron May. Have a nice day, and please stay safe.